All right, Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is getting ready to do something that only Muhammad Ali has done in the last 40 to 50 years. Now that I have your attention, let me get comfortable. I'm going to tell you something about what Mikey Garcia is doing in his fight versus Errol Spence. But first, let me give you a backdrop on Muhammad Ali and his fight with George Foreman. Ali fought George Foreman, I believe, in 1974. 79 is important to me because so many different fights happened in 79. So I tend to mix up 74 with 79. It's also the year that I graduated high school, right? But 74 is the year, I believe, that Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman. And the reason why that still remains one of the biggest upsets in the history of boxing is because George Foreman was undefeated. George Foreman was a destroyer. He was a destroyer. Ali was believed to be past his prime, which he was. And that's one of the reasons why he stayed on the ropes, in the infamous rope-a-dope, right? Rope-a-dope. And it's because he was past his prime. But Ali never really told people what he was going to do. He never told anyone that he was going to lay on the ropes because they would not have allowed him to fight. Even at that, even those people who thought that Ali would move believed he would be killed. And it's the absolute truth. This is why that fight is one of the biggest upsets in the history of boxing. But more than that, it was the risk. It was the risk. The risk that Ali took has not been seen since Mikey Garcia signed to fight Errol Spence. Okay? And most people are not really articulating how that is. So, I'm going to explain that. Manny Pacquiao moved up, and he fought other welterweights. He fought Oscar De La Hoya. A risk? Yeah, but Oscar De La Hoya was not the one-punch knockout artist, was not a one-punch knockout artist. Oscar De La Hoya was past his prime. Oscar De La Hoya had a defense, but could be hit. Of course, Manny Pacquiao had started with the angles, a la Freddie Roach's tutoring. And he always, Freddie Roach, no matter what, will always deserve credit for working with Pacquiao on his angles, something that had he not had those angles, I don't think he would have done nearly as well in the welterweight division. But we see that there wasn't the risk factor with Manny Pacquiao and Oscar De La Hoya. When we look at Floyd Mayweather, was there a risk factor in some of his fights, in his fight with Canelo Alvarez? Well, yes, there was. But because Floyd Mayweather is a defensive fighter, and he was a master of defense, there's only so much harm that Canelo was going to do. There was only so much harm that he was going to do. The refs, in my personal opinion, no matter how much Floyd talks about racism in his case, I think the refs have always been friendly to Floyd Mayweather, always. Whenever he was in the corner or whenever someone was trying to brawl with him, it was generally always broken up and he was allowed to move to the center of the ring. Not saying he would have lost had he not been able to do that, because he can fight fairly well off the ropes. But the fact of the matter is, he was always helped by referees when he was being mauled on the ropes or in the corner. So because of his defense, him fighting Canelo Alvarez, the risk wasn't there as much. Buster Douglas, bigger than Mike Tyson, the risk wasn't there as much. Tyson was strong, even if Tyson had been in his prime when Buster Douglas beat him, and he certainly was not way out of his prime. I think his issues was more with the Robin Givens thing and Don King thing more than anything else. But the fact of the matter is because of Buster Douglas' size, the risk factor wasn't there. Roy Jones Jr. moving up to fight John Ruiz. the risk factor was not there. I don't believe that people really thought that John Ruiz was fast enough to catch Roy Jones if Roy Jones decided to move more, right? Who didn't move a lot on his legs anyway, but could if he chose to. Risk factor wasn't there. Roberto Duran moving up to fight Sugar Ray Leonard the first time. Well, Roberto Duran had a great chin. Sugar Ray Leonard was the kind of fighter, however, that if you weren't particularly aggressive against him, he wouldn't always go in for the kill, unless he was desperate, and then he would go in for the kill. But as we see with Thomas Hearns and Don Lalonde, but on the average, Sugar Ray Leonard was a kind of fighter that he would go a decision, you know, and so the risk factor really wasn't there when Roberto Duran moved up to fight him. No matter who we're talking about, no matter really who we're talking about, whatever fight, the risk factor was not there in the way it was with Muhammad Ali fighting George Foreman until Mikey Garcia signed to fight Errol Spence. And although Mikey Garcia is not a Muhammad Ali, so don't misconstrue my words and say, okay, he's saying he's Muhammad Ali. No, he's not Muhammad Ali. No one is. Not because of sentimental reasons, but because a man that big, to move like he moved, right? To be as fast as he was, to have the chin that he had, you will never see a heavyweight like that. Ever, 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 ever. Okay? There will never be a fighter who transcended his division so much, his or her division now, right? So much that it's safe to say you will never see a fighter like that. The only other fighter that I can say you will never see a fighter like, or it's very chances are you will never see a fighter like, is Manny Pacquiao. If you are 10 years old, if a child is 10 years old today, they can live to be 70, and they likely will never see a flyweight move up to dominate, not fight at, to dominate at the welterweight division, at the welterweight level. But that aside, when we talk about risk factor, the only fight in the last 40 to 50 years that had a risk factor similar to George Foreman Ali is Mikey Garcia versus Errol Spence. Mikey Garcia fighting Errol Spence is such a risk factor that most people did not even believe that Mikey Garcia was serious until he said, hey guys, I'm serious. Now, unfortunately, and I want to backtrack a moment, unfortunately many people have missed the point. Many people still talk like, well, Mikey Garcia is going to lose. Well, generally those people who say that are people who, and you know, not people who say he's going to lose, but people who say, okay, well, he's going to lose, so why did he fight him? Most of those people who say that are the affluent. Are affluent people, usually from the West, who quite likely are no more than hobbyists, hang out all day at the 7-Eleven, don't know what fighting is, probably think that Brazilian Jiu-jitsu is the ultimate martial art, you know, certain kind of people, right? Mostly non-black, right? Mostly. Now, I'm not saying that black people believe that Mikey Garcia is going to win. What I'm saying is the great deal of people who say, well, since he's going to lose, why should he fight him anyway? Most of those people are fairly well-to-do non-black folks, right? Who can't see rhyme or reason why anybody would possibly want to match their manhood with another fighter. Okay. Now, that aside, Mikey Garcia is taking a chance. And he is taking a major chance. And that chance of him fighting that he's taking when he fights Errol Spence is not one that he's just going to lose it. He may lose a decision. Errol Spence could hurt him. Errol Spence could hurt Mikey Garcia as bad as you can hurt any fighter in a boxing match. I'm going to repeat. Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr., because he's a junior. Errol Spence Jr. is so strong and has a disposition, a nasty disposition, similar to Marvin Hagler. Not the skills of Marvin Hagler, similar to Marvin Hagler in his approach. He has this seek and destroy mission, and he's already said he's going to destroy Mikey Garcia. Not that words are the only thing that matters. Not that they matter a great deal, but when he says it, he means it, right? The fact of the matter is, or at least he's going to try to destroy him. He's describing his approach. That means to me that Mikey Garcia could be seriously hurt. Mikey Garcia knows that he could be seriously hurt. Robert Garcia still looks uncomfortable with his brother fighting Errol Spence. Still, no matter what he's saying, he still looks uncomfortable with that. Mikey Garcia has my undying respect. And he has my undying respect because he is doing something that I have not seen in the last 50 years. And that is taking on a challenge that most people believe he cannot possibly win. Now, I want to say this to those people who are upset that Canelo Alvarez said that he is going with Mikey Garcia because he's Mexican, although he believes that Errol Spence will likely beat Mikey. There were black people who are outraged. There is a commentator, a boxing commentator, very popular boxing commentator, right? Who, and if I knew the name, if the name comes to me, I still won't say anything about him because I think he does a great service, and there's really no need to say anything about this particular individual. But right now, the name escapes me. That aside, he said that he was outraged, that Canelo Alvarez said that Mikey Garcia, he's backing Mikey Garcia because Mikey Garcia is Mexican, even though he believes Mikey Garcia is going to lose. Well, I want to say this to those black people who are outraged. You have black fighters, other than Terrence Crawford, who ducked Errol Spence. You have black fighters, other than Terrence Crawford, because Terrence Crawford, I have no doubt, would fight Errol Spence. I have no doubt Terrence Crawford will fight a lion. No doubt whatsoever. The fact of the matter is, though, is that the great deal of welterweight, it's raining outside, hopefully I'm talking over the rain, the great deal of welterweight fighters, black welterweight fighters, want no part of Errol Spence. So if you want to get upset about something, if you want to blame anyone for Errol Spence being able to run just roughshod over the welterweight division, you should blame your own black fighters. To a large degree, I believe that Keith Thurman has doubts about fighting Errol Spence. I think that Keith Thurman is absolutely happy that someone has stepped up to fight Errol Spence. I think that Keith Thurman hopes that Mikey Garcia will beat Errol Spence. And I believe that Keith Thurman has the skills to beat Errol Spence, but I also think that Keith Thurman has gone out of his way not to upset Errol Spence Jr. and not to speed up the process of him fighting Errol Spence Jr. At that, again, black people have no one to blame but black fighters. That's it. Now, when it comes down to, and this is going to tick some black folks off, but I don't depend on the proceeds of YouTube, and I do that deliberately. I make my own living doing other things deliberately, and that's so I can be honest. I can be honest whether people like it or not. Black people have supported a black fighter when they looked like fools for doing it. Black people have supported a black fighter when they look like fools for doing it. Floyd Mayweather Jr. Black people should have abandoned Floyd Mayweather Jr. 10 years ago. They should have abandoned him 10 years ago. They accused Manny Pacquiao of using steroids. He never used steroids. They allowed Floyd Mayweather to hire the one man who was said to give Manny Pacquiao steroids. Floyd Mayweather hired him. Black people said nothing. Floyd Mayweather fought Robert the Ghost Guerrero. Black people said nothing. For his so-called last fight, he fought Andre Berto, right? Who he could have fought when Andre Berto was in his prime, right? Black people said nothing. He fought Conor McGregor, and black people allowed him to add that match, that win, to his boxing record. they allowed that. He actually befriended the racist basketball player who owned the LA Clippers, right? Black people said nothing. He was asked how he felt about Donald Trump. He said Donald Trump was his friend. Black people said nothing. He said that he would never give anything to Africa because Africa never did anything for him. Black people said nothing. Floyd Mayweather, I happen to know about Floyd Mayweather's lifestyle because his mother lived in New Brunswick. The infamous mother who was on drugs that Floyd Mayweather lived with lived in New Brunswick. That is my hometown. When Floyd Mayweather Sr. would come to see, would go to New Brunswick, New Jersey, in the United States to see a little Floyd, who was about 2 years old at the time, he would stop into the Police Athletic League and watch teenage boxers box. One of those boxers was myself. I could look outside of the gym and see the backyard that Floyd Mayweather used to play in New Brunswick, in his mother's home. Floyd Mayweather lived with his mother for about a year, right? And then he went back to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and lived with his grandmother, who showered him with love. Roger Mayweather always considered Floyd to be one of his favorite relatives. Roger Mayweather was ripped off, yes, by his managers, but he showered little Floyd with every toy little Floyd could imagine, right? That's a fact. By the time Floyd Mayweather was 15 years old, people knew that he would be a good boxer. People knew that he would one day be a pro fighter. So he was given jewelry, new sneakers at 15. Floyd Mayweather lived in abject poverty for about 1 year of his entire life. I currently live in Newark, New Jersey. Floyd Mayweather, by the time he was 15, lived better than 99.99% of 15-year-olds in the city of Newark, New Jersey. But Floyd Mayweather ran that whole game down on black people about how impoverished he was. He ran that whole game down on how racism was against him. Racism is against some fighters. Racism is against Tyron Woodley. There is racism in the UFC. Yes, Dana White is a racist, right? The fact that he backs John Jones, he can make money with John Jones, right? So it's not unusual for a white person to be a racist and use black people to make some money, but he is still a racist, right? Dana White is a racist. When it comes down, though, to Floyd Mayweather was accused of beating up his girlfriend or striking his girlfriend, and because he can make money for Las Vegas, he was allowed to go ahead and fight before he went to jail. So the fact of the matter is that Floyd Mayweather has probably suffered less from racism than any other black fighter in history. Okay, so, but he would parade out this whole thing about, you know, black people back me because white people hate me. Floyd Mayweather has had it extremely good. Even his first contract as a pro fighter, he made more money than 99% of other fighters of any other ethnicity, all right, in his pro debut. He got a title shot after 18 fights. A title shot after 18 fights. Most fighters do not get a title shot, no matter what ethnicity, after 18 fights, okay? So, Floyd Mayweather was backed by black people, and no one said much of anything, all right? Well, there were some white folks who, you know, talked about flow mode, so I can't lie about that. But black people should not be nearly as upset with Canelo Alvarez as they should be with themselves for getting ripped off time after time, right, by one of the greatest sellouts in the history of American sports, Floyd Mayweather Jr. So, Mikey Garcia, here's to you, Mikey Garcia, for doing something that so many black fighters in the welterweight division were too afraid to step up and do. Canelo Alvarez, I do not blame him one bit for going against Errol Spence and going with Mikey Garcia. Now, do I want Errol Spence to win? He can win. I will be perfectly honest with you. If Errol Spence lost, I don't think it would affect his career all that much. I really don't. I don't think it would affect his career all that much. I don't think he will. But from a man's standpoint, an alpha male standpoint, I absolutely love what Mikey Garcia is doing. I absolutely love what Mikey Garcia is doing. And before I end this video, I am going to say, again, from a manly standpoint, manly, not racial standpoint, from a manly standpoint, I put Mikey Garcia on the very top for the fighter that I respect most in this particular generation at this particular time. Again, here's to Mikey Garcia, and for taking a chance that I don't think any other fighter would have done, and for being the first fighter in the last 50 years to take this much of a chance in a fight that he absolutely chose and pushed forward to bring to fruition. All right, I'm Safe Harmon, the walking encyclopedia of martial arts and all of social media, not just YouTube, all of social media. Watch my karate, real karate. Watch my boxing, real boxing. Watch my Greco-Roman, real Greco-Roman. The most complete martial artist on social media, no BS. See you next video.